Hello friends. So today we are going to talk about the concept of interference obtained using the method of division of wavefront. So talking about the phenomena of interference, in the previous videos we have talked about the phenomena related to light. That is, we have even talked about reflection, we have even talked about refraction, and we have said that light is going to possess two natures. That is, we say that light has dual nature. One is considered to be the particle nature, another one is considered to be the wave nature. The most widely used is wave nature because the most common phenomena shown by light is completely dependent on the wave nature. But we can't say that the only existence of the wave nature is going to have. We are going to have the particle nature also, but that is all dependent on the phenomena which we are talking about. Now, when you talk about interference, we are aware of the concept that whenever we allow the superposition of two or more waves together, and the resultant wave which we get is nothing but obtained by interference or superposition or mixing of two or more waves together, and that concept is nothing but called as interference. But the way we say easily that the superposition of two or more waves together is going to give rise to interference, but we require certain conditions to get satisfied for occurrence of interference. That is, the first case is that whenever we talk about interference, we need to consider that the sources which we are making use of in the phenomena of interference, it should be coherent sources. So coherent sources are the basic requirement for the concept or for the phenomena of interference of light. Now, when we say interference or when we say coherent sources, what do we mean by coherent sources is that coherent sources means the sources which are going to have same frequency and constant phase difference. So, if I have two or more light waves coming from a source, and if the light waves have same frequency and they maintain a constant phase difference throughout their journey, that type of light waves obtained from the sources, that sources are going to be considered to be coherent sources. So whichever interference we talk about, whether we want to talk about interference obtained due to division of wavefront, or we talk about interference obtained due to the division of amplitude, all the type of phenomena of interference will require coherent sources. That is, the sources having or emitting light waves having the same frequency and constant phase difference. So we have to keep in mind that whenever we are talking about interference, whether it is with the help of division of wavefront or whether we are talking about the interference with the help of division of amplitude, in all the cases we are going to make use of the main source, that is the coherent sources. That is, light waves having the same frequency and the constant phase difference. Now today, obviously we are going to talk about the topic that is interference by division of wavefront. Now, in the previous videos, we have obviously talked about the wavefront. We have even talked about the different types of wavefront which is obtained. Like, just for a reminder, that whenever we say a wavefront, it is nothing but a locus of all the points together, and if we join or if we take the locus of all the points together which are obtained due to the light waves, that is said to lead to the formation of wavefront. Depending upon the sources, whether I have a point source, whether I have a source in a form of a slit, I can obtain different type of wavefront. I can obtain a spherical wavefront, we can obtain cylindrical wavefront, we can obtain plane wavefront. So we can have different types of wavefront. But in this case, like when we talk about the phenomena of interference with the help of division of wavefront, so in that case we consider a single source of light which is considered to be the primary source of light, and from that primary source we are going to place a single slit. What do you mean by a slit? Slit is nothing but a small opening, so that whatever sources we are going to use, it is going to appear as a point source of light. So we have a original light source placed over here. After that, we have a single slit, which is a small opening present, and we have only one small opening present over there. But after that, we have the presence of double slit. That is, as you can see, we have a slit present at point A and the slit present at point B. So we have two slits, that is A and B. So we have a single source, then we have a single slit. Single slit is a small opening which is going to allow this light from the source to pass through it. And after the single slit, we have the presence of double slit, that is in a form of A and B. So the light waves which are obtained from the single slit is going to get divided into two parts. That is, some light is going to travel from the slit A, and the other half of the light waves are going to travel through the slit B. So that means we are trying to divide the light waves obtained from the single slit with the help of double slits, that is A and B. Now, the light waves which are obtained from the double slit, that is A slit of the double slit, and the light waves which are obtained from the slit B of the double slit, they are both allowed to merge with each other, or they both are allowed to superimpose with each other, and you are either going to get the crest overlapping with the crest, or trough overlapping with the trough of another light, or we can even have a combination that crest of one wave that is coming from A and trough of another wave that is coming from point B or the slit B, they are going to overlap. So if the crest and trough are overlapping, that is going to give me destructive interference. But if the crest of wave obtained from A and the crest of wave obtained from the B, they are allowed to overlap, so they are going to give me a constructive interference. So depending upon the overlapping of the light waves from the sources A and B, or you can say from the slits A and B, either the two types of interference is going to occur, that is constructive or destructive. If the constructive interference is occurring, then on the screen we are going to obtain the maximum intensity. But due to the overlapping of the light waves after the double slit, if we obtain dark point or if destructive interference is occurring, in that case we are going to obtain a minimum intensity on the screen. So whether I get a maximum intensity or whether I get a minimum intensity on the screen, that is entirely dependent on overlapping occurring from the light waves which are getting emitted from the two slits, that is A and B. So what is happening in this case is that the wavefront which is getting originated, this curves, as you can see, these curves are nothing but indicating the wavefront. So from the source, that is from the light source, using the single slit, we obtain the wavefront. Now these are like one range of wavefront, but after that single slit, I'm making use of double slit. So that single range of wavefront is getting divided into two parts. That is, some part of the wavefront is going to go in this direction, some part of the wavefront is going to go in this direction. So the wavefront which is obtained from the single slit is getting divided into two parts. So we can say that using the double slit A and B, we are trying to divide the wavefront obtained from the single slit, or we can say that we are dividing the wavefront which is obtained from the single common source. So this, using this light waves or using this wavefront, we are overlapping this light waves and we are getting the interference pattern. So we are getting the interference pattern by using the light waves which are obtained by division of wavefront. And how is this wavefront getting divided? Obviously by using the double slit. So once I make use of double slit over there, that is after the single slit. So using the double slit, we are trying to divide the wavefront which is coming from the common source. So if the wavefront is getting divided, we now try to overlap the light waves and we get the interference pattern. So whatever interference we are getting, that is a maximum minimum intensity, this pattern obtained on the screen is nothing but the interference pattern. So this interference pattern which is obtained on screen, that is bright intensity, dark intensity, alternate bright and dark, this interference is entirely obtained using the light waves which are getting divided into two parts with the help of division of wavefront. So we can say this concept is nothing but the interference obtained by division of wavefront. So if we get an interference pattern from the light waves which are having the division of wavefront using the double slit, this type of phenomena or this type of concepts are called as interference by division of wavefront. So when we say interference by division of wavefront, we have three methods which are basically used, but obviously we can make use of many more methods. But the three common methods which are used for division of wavefront, that is to get the phenomena of interference with the help of division of wavefront. The first method is Young's double slit experiment. Second method is Fresnel biprism, and the third method is Lloyd's prism. And there are many more methods which we can adopt, using which we can get the interference pattern. And using all these methods, we are actually trying to have the division of wavefront of the light which is obtained from the common source. So we try to divide the wavefront, and the wavefront which is obtained from the light source or the common source, and due to the division of wavefront we try to overlap this light waves and they get the interference pattern. So we can make use of any of the method which is given below, that is Young's double slit experiment, either the second is biprism and the third is Lloyd's mirror. So these are like three basic methods used for obtaining the interference with the help of division of wavefront. So talking about the first method, that is Young's double slit experiment, we say that in this Young's double slit experiment, the scientist Young was the first scientist who gave the basic idea of interference, and he was the first scientist who gave the experimental proof behind the interference concept. So to give the experimental proof for the interference concept of light, so the first scientist was none other than Young's. So when we talk about Young's double slit experiment, originally when he started with his experiment, he talked about the sunlight has a natural source of light, and then he made use of a common that is cardboard, and in that cardboard he tried to make a pinhole, that is one single pinhole. So what was the arrangement originally he made, that is sunlight was used as the natural source of light. After that he kept a cardboard, and on that cardboard he just kept a pinhole, that is one single pinhole which can be used as a single slit. And after that cardboard he placed one another cardboard, but on that he made two pinholes so that it can behave as two slits or double slits. So overall when we talk about the basic or the natural experiment which we made use of over there, in that case he made use of sunlight as a common source of light. As we are aware, it is a natural source of light, so sunlight was considered as source of light. Then after that he made use of cardboard, and in that cardboard he gave a small opening which was in a form of pinhole. So he made a pinhole over there, and again we can obtain one more cardboard, and on that we can make two pinholes. So we are trying to make, so in this case we are making use of sunlight as the natural source of light, and this is one cardboard which is placed just in front of it, and this is behaving as a single slit as we have only one small opening. And after that there is one more cardboard placed, and in that case we have two slits or two small openings. So these were nothing but the pinholes, so we can name it as pinhole P, this we can name it as pinhole P1, and this as P2. So these are behaving as double slit, and obviously at the end we have to place the screen. So we have the overall arrangement, that is, this was the arrangement done by Young's for his natural experiment, and this was the first experiment performed on the concept of interference by the scientist Young. So in this experiment he made use of the natural source of light, that is sunlight. After that he used a cardboard on which he made a pinhole which was acting as a single slit, and after that he again made use of a cardboard, but on that cardboard he made two pinholes, that is, which we can consider as a double slit, and ultimately he kept the screen. Obviously the lights which is obtained from this, they gave rise to wavefront, and this wavefront got divided into two parts because of the two pinholes present over here. So these were the two wavefronts which we get, but because of the wavefront which we are getting, these are nothing but the light waves. So these are nothing but the wavefront of the light. So as we are aware of that light is a transverse wave, so it will consist of crest and trough. So when we consider one part of the wavefront coming from P1 pinhole and some part of the wavefront coming from the pinhole P2, if they are allowed to overlap with the help of either crest crest overlapping or trough trough overlapping, giving me constructive interference, that is a maximum intensity on the screen, or if we get an overlapping of crest with the trough, we are going to get zero intensity or minimum intensity, that is a dark band. So in this manner we were going able to obtain the interference pattern on the screen. So this was a natural experiment, or you can say the experiment which was used for proof as a interference can occur. This was the experimental proof behind it, making use of the natural source of light, that is sunlight. But obviously instead of the natural source we can make use of the normal sources of light, that is artificial sources of light. And in this case we have shown S, that is a single source of light which is allowed to pass through the first screen, that is having one single slit. So this is nothing but your single slit, and when we go to the single slit is going to give rise to wavefront. So this is giving me wavefront, and after that single slit we have another presence of second screen, and on that second screen we have two slits, that is the one slit over here and the second over here. So this is behaving as double slit, and as we can see that the wavefront which is obtained from this point, that is this wavefronts, is getting divided into two parts, that is some part are going in this direction with the help of S1, and some part of wavefront obtained from here is going from the S2. So the original wavefront coming from the common source S is getting divided into two parts with the help of the slits, and when we allow them to overlap, this is going to give me maximum and minimum intensity. This is nothing but we are getting the interference pattern on the screen. So this is what we say that Young's double slit experiment is nothing but a method of obtaining interference pattern with the help of division of wavefront. Now when we talk about the further analytical treatment, that how to get a maximum intensity using the Young's double slit experiment, or what is the criteria for obtaining the minimum intensity using the double slit experiment. So when we are talking about Young's double slit experiment, we can either get maximum intensity on the screen or minimum intensity, that is alternate bands, that is nothing but interference pattern. So we need to adopt the analytical treatment for obtaining or deriving the mathematical equations to get which type of interference we want, whether we want a constructive or destructive. So this is, we are going to talk about the analytical treatment of the Young's double slit experiment, that is the mathematical conditions required for the maximum intensity or minimum intensity. Now as we can see that there is a S source that is a common source. From this source, we allow the light waves to come, and the source S is taken to be the monochromatic source of light. Now, when I say monochromatic, it is considered to have a single wavelength, first of all. Secondly, S1 and S2 are behaving as a coherent sources. Why? Because S1 and S2 are the two sources which are obtained from the common source S. So, if S1 and S2 is getting obtained from S, so they are going to have same frequency as the light waves of S. They are going to have the constant phase difference. So, S1 and S2 are behaving as the coherent sources. So, when we talk about the diagram, we can consider that S is considered to be the monochromatic source. Now, when we say monochromatic, the light wave is going to have single wavelength, and we can consider the wavelength to be lambda. Second, we obtain two sources, that is S1 and S2, with the help of S. So we are obtaining two sources S1 and S2 from S. So the light waves which are emitted from S1 and S2 is same as the one obtained from S, because they S1 and S2 are getting obtained from S, that is the common source. So we can say that S1 and S2 is behaving as coherent sources. Now when we say coherent sources, that means they are going to have same frequency and they are going to have the constant phase difference. So S is considered to be the monochromatic source of light in the experiment. Whatever light waves are getting emitted from there, or the wavefront, is getting divided into two parts with the help of S1 and S2. And as the S1 S2 are emitting the same light waves which are obtained from the common source, that is why the light waves from S1 and S2 are going to have same frequency and the constant phase difference. So as they have same frequency and constant phase difference, so that is why S1 and S2 are considered to be coherent sources. Or considering all this in concept, we can say that as we are aware, any wave is going to have an amplitude. Like if I consider a wave and this part of the wave is considered to be the amplitude of the wave. So as I have two sources, that is S1 and S2, so we can consider two light waves, that is one coming from S1 and another coming from S2. So as we have two light waves, that is S1 and S2, so we can consider the light waves emitted from S1 to have amplitude A1 and light waves which are getting emitted from S2 to have amplitude A2. So we have considered two amplitudes A1 and A2. Secondly, when we talk about the wave coming from S1, I can write the displacement equation for it at any instant of time t. So this is the wave equation which we have written for the first wave coming from the first source of the double slit, that is S1. So the wave equation is written as y1, that is the displacement equation of the wave, is equal to a1 sine omega t, where omega is taken to be the frequency of the wave and a1 is considered to be the amplitude of the first wave. Now obviously we have another wave which is coming from source S2, obviously obtained from S. So when we write the equation for the light wave coming from S2 at any instant t, it is written as y2 is equal to a2 sine omega t plus phi. So if I look at the two equations, that is y1 and y2, these are nothing but two displacement equations for the two light waves at any instant of time t. So as we can see that the two equations are almost same, but a1 is the amplitude of the first wave coming from S1, a2 is the amplitude of the second wave coming from S2. But obviously as we can see, there is a certain phase difference between the two, that is phi indicates the phase difference, which is obviously a constant phase difference between the two light waves. So when we talk about the different parameters, we can write two displacement equations for the two light waves coming from the two sources. But as we allow the light waves coming from S1 and S2 to overlap or interfere with each other, as they are overlapping or interfering with each other, we are going to get a resultant wave, and that resultant wave is going to give me a resultant displacement. And if I say if I'm overlapping two waves together, so mathematically I will mean to say that I can add the displacements of the two waves, that is y1 plus y2 is going to give me y. So y is the resultant displacement of the resultant wave. So I took two light waves, tried to overlap with each other, that is interfered with each other. Interfering the two light waves is going to give me resultant wave, and the resultant wave is going to be shown by resultant displacement, that is y. And if I want to write the resultant displacement, it will be the sum of displacement made by the individual waves. So we are writing the equation as y is equal to y1 plus y2. As we are aware that y1 is a1 sine omega t and y2 is a2 sine omega t plus phi. So writing the equation as it is, plus y2 is taken to be a2 sine omega t plus phi. Now if we want to continue with the further equation, we are going to expand this equation, that is the second equation, using the trigonometrical concept, that is sine omega t plus sine omega t plus phi can be written as sine omega t into cos phi plus a2 cos omega t into sine phi. Now this is the overall equation after expanding the second term. Now as we can see in the first case, that is the first two terms have the common term, that is sine omega t. So I'm just taking the two terms together, that is a2 cos phi. They are going to have the common term, that is sine omega t plus a2 sine phi cos omega t. This is the equation which we get. Now from this equation we can obviously write that is we can write y is equal to, or we can consider over here that we have two terms, or we can have two brackets over here, that is a1 plus a2 cos phi can be considered as a cos theta completely, the whole term, and a2 sine phi can be considered as a sine theta. So I have written this bracket to be equal to a cos theta, that is it has cos term, and we have written a2 sine phi as it is considering of, that is the sine term, so we are writing it as a sine theta. So I'm just denoting this equation as 1 and this equation as 2. Now what we are going to do is we are going to square the terms and add them together. Obviously when we are trying to square them, we have to square on both the sides and add them. So if we are squaring and adding both the terms, that is adding both the equation 1 and 2, what we are going to get is, on the LHS we are going to get a1 square plus 2a1 a2 cos phi, because this term is going to behave as a plus b the whole square, that is a1 square 2a1 a2 cos phi, and the second term, that is b square. So expanding the term, that is the first term, that is we are squaring and adding them, so we are going to get the b square term, that is this part, as a2 cos square 5. So this is what you get the value as, and on the RHS we are going to get a square cos square theta, and on the LHS of the second equation, as we are adding it, so we can write the plus term also, that is a2 square sine square phi, and on the RHS of the second term we can have, that is So on the RHS, we can have a2 square cos square theta plus this term, that is a square sine square theta. So once we are combining all the terms together, that is on the LHS we have a1 square plus this whole term plus a2 square cos square phi plus a2 square sine square phi. And on the RHS we have a square cos square theta plus a square sine square theta. So as we are squaring the term, that is equation 1 and equation 2, and we are adding the LHS with LHS and the RHS with RHS. So we are ultimately getting this equation. And if we want to simplify this further, this term is going to be as it is. We can obviously continue with the further terms as this is going to be as it is. This is also going to be also remain as it is. But when you look at the third and the fourth term, we have a2 square as common, but in the bracket we are going to get sine square phi plus cos square phi. As we are aware that when I add this third and fourth term together, I will get a2 square to be common, but in the bracket I will get sine square phi plus cos square phi, which is going to be 1. So combining 3 and 4 term, that is adding them together, we are going to get is a2 square, because sine square 5 plus cos square 5 is 1. But on the RHS, again we have the same equation, that is a square is going to be common, but on this side we have cos square theta plus sine square theta. Again it is going to give me 1. So the ultimate equation which we are going to get over here is, so if we are combining that equation, we are going to have a1 square, and the other term was, that is second term, that is 2a1 a2 cos phi plus, as we were combining the third fourth term together, we were getting a2 square, just because sine square phi plus cos square phi is 1. And on the RHS we have a square to be common, and again in the bracket I get sine square theta plus cos square theta, which is equal to 1. So this is equal to a square. So this is the ultimate equation which we get by overlapping the two waves coming from the S1 and S2. But this is an analytical treatment of it, because we are trying to calculate it mathematically, the displacement, that is the resultant displacement of the resultant wave, which is obtained by adding the displacements of the two waves coming from the two coherent sources, that is S1 and S2. So this is the final equation which we get for the amplitude. But we have to keep in mind, and one thing is that more the amplitude of the wave, more will be the intensity of light. So the amplitude of wave is directly proportional to the intensity of light. So as the amplitude increases, the intensity will also increase. So when we say amplitude and intensity, we can say that as amplitude is decreasing, intensity of light will decrease. That means we can say that intensity and the amplitude of light are directly related with each other, that is in the direct proportion. So what is the relation between intensity and amplitude is that whenever we talk about intensity of light, intensity is taken to be directly proportional to amplitude square. So as we can see that this A is indicating the amplitude of the resultant wave. Capital A indicates the amplitude of resultant wave, and A1 was indicating the amplitude of the first light wave coming from S1, and A2, that is small a2, is indicating the amplitude of the second light wave coming from the second source S2. We allowed them to overlap, and we are getting the resultant amplitude, that is capital A of the resultant wave. So if this is amplitude square, we can say that it is approximately equal to the intensity. So I can write this to be equal to I. That is, we are getting the equation of intensity of the resultant wave, because once we derived the mathematical terms, we are getting the amplitude square, and the amplitude square is going to give me the intensity of the light wave. So this equation gives me the intensity of the light wave of the resultant wave, which is obtained by interference by division of wavefront using the method called as Young's double slit experiment. Now, once I get this equation, we can obviously opt for what is the criteria for the maximum intensity. and we can even derive the criteria for minimum intensity. Now, as we are aware that whenever we say maximum intensity, because the overlapping of waves will either give me maximum intensity on the screen, or the overlapping of wave will give me minimum intensity. So we need to derive both the criterias, that is for maximum intensity as well as minimum. So when you say for maximum intensity, as we got the ultimate equation as a1 square plus a2 square plus 2a1 a2 cos phi, which was equal to I, that is intensity or amplitude square. Now when we write the further part, that is for maximum intensity, we consider this angle phi. Now phi is nothing but taken to be the phase difference, that is the constant phase difference between the two light waves. Now if we want to try for the maximum intensity, so your angle should be maximum, and as we are aware, cos phi is going to attain the maximum value of, that is plus 1. And if I consider cos phi to be plus 1, my angle, that is phi, should be 2n pi, that is phase difference should be of 2n pi. Secondly, if I consider that if my angle is maximum, that is cos phi is going to have the maximum value as plus 1, so obtaining the criteria for the maximum intensity, we are going to get a1 square plus a2 square. As for maximum intensity, cos phi should be plus 1, so my equation is going to be 2a1 a2, that is my intensity for the maximum light obtained on the interference pattern. As we are aware that if I write a square plus 2ab plus b square in a similar manner, I can write this as a quadratic equation, that is I max will be equal to a1 square plus a2 square plus 2a1 a2, that is a1 plus a2 the whole square, that is a plus b the whole square, is going to give me this relation. So if I want the light to have maximum intensity, what should be the maximum intensity? It should be greater than the value of a1 square plus a2 square. So this is the criteria for obtaining the light, that is maximum intensity of light on the interference pattern. So if you want to obtain the maximum intensity of light, the angle should be maximum, and the angle, that is cos phi, is going to attain the maximum value of 1. And accordingly, if we calculate the value, we are getting the condition for the maximum intensity by using the analytical treatment. Now, as we have already discussed in the previous videos, that phase difference is always related to path difference. Now what is the relation between phase difference and path? It is related by 2 pi by lambda. And when we talk about maximum intensity or for constructive interference, the path difference should be integral multiple of wavelength. So as we are talking about the maximum intensity or the brightest point, the path difference should be integral multiple of lambda, and n is nothing but indicating the integral multiple of lambda. So we are getting the condition for intensity, for the maximum intensity of the interference. Secondly, we are getting the path difference, that is we are already aware that path difference for the constructive interference or the maximum intensity is always taken to be the integral multiple of wavelength. So this is the criteria for intensity and the path difference to be obtained when we talk about the maximum point or the bright point in the interference pattern. Now when we talk about the minimum intensity, in minimum intensity, if we want to write the equation, we can write it again as the final equation as, that is a1 square plus a2 square plus 2a1 a2 cos phi, which is equal to your a square term, that is the intensity, Now, for minimum intensity, I have to consider that at which value or at which angle the cos value will be lesser or minimum. So, cos phi is going to attain a minimum value of minus 1, and obviously cos phi is going to have a value of minus 1 at an angle of 2n plus 1 pi. So, for minimum intensity, we say that the minimum angle has to be considered. So cos phi is going to have the minimum value at minus 1, and phi is going to have the value of 2n plus 1, that is pi. Next is, if I make use of cos phi has minus 1, that is for minimum intensity, my this equation is going to behave as a1 plus a2 square, as this term is minus 1. So minus 1 is going to get multiplied. We are going to get minus 2a1 a2, which is equal to I. And if you look at this equation, that is a square plus b square minus 2ab, this is nothing but a minus b the whole square. Therefore, we can write that I is equal to a1 minus a2 the whole square. And if I want my intensity to be minimum, the minimum intensity should be less than a1 square minus a2 square. So when you talk about minimum intensities and the maximum intensities, they have certain criterias. So these are the criterias which we obtain in this case. So we have obtained the intensity criteria for the maximum intensity or the bright point in the interference pattern. We have even obtained the criteria for minimum intensity or the dark point in the interference pattern. Now, obviously, when we talk about the path difference, for destructive interference or for dark point, the path difference is taken to be odd multiple of lambda by 2. So, we consider odd multiple of lambda by 2. So, this 2n plus 1 is indicating the odd multiple. So, if we want to talk about the destructive interference, path difference is taken to be odd multiple of lambda by 2, which is getting satisfied. So, if this condition of intensity gets satisfied, and if the below condition of path difference gets satisfied, we are going to call this type of intensity to be minimum intensity, this type of point to be dark point, or we can say that this is going to give you a destructive interference. So we are either going to obtain constructive interference on the interference pattern with the help of previous mathematical conditions, or we can obtain the dark point or the minimum intensity on the interference pattern with the help of this criteria. So this is nothing but the analytical treatment or the mathematical treatment for obtaining the interference pattern. Now obviously, if we want good contrast, what do you mean by good contrast is that is the bright point should be, or the band which is indicated as a bright band for having the maximum intensity, it should be completely bright, and the dark band should be completely dark. So if a bright band is a completely bright band and a dark band is a completely dark band, this represents a interference pattern having a very good contrast. So obviously, if it is asked that which type of interference pattern is preferable to us during the experiment, we are going to obviously answer it that we should get a good contrast interference. Now, if you want to get a good contrast, we need to have this criteria to be satisfied. That is, if I want my bright band to be completely bright, and if I want my dark band to be completely dark, this is said to have a good contrast. And if we want to have a good contrast, we have to keep the amplitude of both the waves to be same. That is, the amplitude from the first light wave and the amplitude from the second light wave should be equal to each other. And if they are equal, we are going to get brightest point in the band and the darkest point in the dark band. Why? Because when we say, or when we obtain the bright band, in that case the amplitudes are going to get added up, that is a1 and a2, that is going to give me a plus a, that is 2 times of a. But when you talk about destructive interference, this is constructive interference. But when you talk about destructive interference, in that case, it is A1 minus A2, that is this one. So if the amplitudes are same, that is A1 is equal to A2, so we can write A minus A, that is 0. So for constructive interference, I'm getting the amplitude to be 2A, and for destructive interference to be 0. Means there is a maximum amplitude for constructive interference and 0 amplitude for destructive. And that is only possible when I make the amplitude to be equal to each other. So if the amplitude of the two light waves are taken to be equal to each other, we are going to obtain maximum amplitude, that is the brightest band for the constructive interference. And if they are same again, so I'm going to get a 0 amplitude or 0 intensity or completely dark band or completely dark fringes in that. So for obtaining a good contrast, that is the bright band should be completely bright and the dark band should be completely dark, the A1 A2, that is the amplitude of two light waves coming from S1 and S2, should be equal to each other. So if they are made equal to each other, we are going to obtain a good contrast interference pattern. So using this criteria, this is the Imax value, that is A1 plus A2 the whole square, that is A plus A the whole square, that is 4A square. And if the amplitudes are same, and using this criteria, that is A1 is equal to A2, but for minimum intensity, A1 minus A2 square is taken to be. So if this are equal to each other, the value is going to be 0. So for maximum intensity, I'm getting the value 4A square, that is 4 times of amplitude square. And for minimum intensity, I'm getting the 0. So this is only possible if I make the amplitude of both the waves to be equal to each other. So this is the way we obtain the good contrast interference pattern using the method of division of wavefront. Now, once we have calculated that what is the mathematical criteria for getting the brightest band or for getting the dark bands, as we can recollect that bands are also called as fringes. That is, when we say bright band, it can be also named as bright fringe. When we say dark band, we can also name it as dark fringe. So fringe is nothing but another word for band. Now, when we are considering a bright band, that is, if I consider a bright band, this represents a bright band. And next, I have considered a dark band. Now, if I want to calculate fringe width, what do you mean by fringe width is that? Now, suppose as we again have an alternate bright band, so this is your alternate bright band. Okay, so as we are aware that at the center we are always going to have central bright band, but above it and below the central band we are going to have alternate bright and dark bands. So I have this line to be central bright band. So obviously in that order we are going to get, so in that order, that is this line is going to be completely central bright band. So after that, above it I'm going to get a dark band, above it we are going to get a bright band, and above it we are going to again get a dark band. So we are going to get alternate bright and dark bands above the central bright band, and below it also we are going to get the same way. So if I want to calculate a term called as fringe width is nothing but also called as bandwidth, because fringe is nothing but another word for band. So if I want to calculate fringe width, it is nothing but the width of two consecutive bright bands or two consecutive dark bands. So, whenever we need to calculate the fringe width, we have to consider consecutive bright bands or we need to consider consecutive dark bands. But please keep in mind, we cannot consider bright band and a dark band. We need to consider two bright bands or two dark bands for calculation of fringe width. So, if I consider two dark bands, this is the first dark band above the central bright band, and this is the second dark band. So if I want to calculate the fringe width between the two, in that case we are going to consider a central line of the dark band and the central line of this dark band. So this indicates the first dark band above the central bright band. This indicates the second dark band above the central bright band. Now this dotted line are indicating the central line. If I take a difference between these two distances, this is nothing but going to give me the calculation of fringe width. So once I start with the calculation of fringe width, we can again keep the same setup of Young's double slit experiment, that this is your coherent source and the wavefront which is getting obtained from S is getting divided into two parts with the help of S1 and S2. Second thing, this S1 and S2 are kept at a distance of 2D, that is the central line till this is the distance is small d, and this distance from the central line to till this is small d. Second, we have dropped a perpendicular from S1 till the screen, that is S1M, and we have again dropped a perpendicular, that is S2 till N on the screen. So we have two perpendiculars, S1M, that is this is forming a 90-degree, and S2N, this is again forming a 90-degree. So we have dropped a perpendicular. Secondly, the waves which are getting emitted from S1, they travel equal path to reach the central point O, and S2 also travels same path to reach the point O. So has the light waves getting emitted from S1 and S2 to reach the point O, they are covering equal path to reach the point O. So the path difference for the central point is going to be 0. And if path difference is 0 for the central point, this indicates the central bright band, because if the path difference is 0 or if the path difference is integral multiple of wavelength, that point or that band is considered to be central bright band. So whichever screen you consider, for every central point, the light waves are going to cover equal distance. And if they are covering equal distance from S1 and S2 to reach the central point O, so the path difference between them is going to be 0. And if the path difference between the two waves is 0, that band is going to be central bright band. Now, if I consider any other point, that is, if I consider a point P, which is above the central point band O, we can consider this point P. As we can see that this point P has two light waves coming up till there, that is one from S1 and the other one from S2. As we can see that the light wave which is coming from S1 is traveling for a shorter distance, and the light wave which is coming from S2 is traveling a longer distance. So the two paths is not the same. That is, the light wave which is getting emitted from S1, the light wave which is getting emitted from S2, they are covering unequal path. So they have the path difference to reach till this point P. So to reach to the point P, they have a certain path difference. So when we start calculating the path difference, we can calculate the path difference with the help of formula, which we are already aware that path difference is denoted by delta. And we are normally talking about the geometrical path difference, not about the optical path difference, as we have already talked about the geometrical and optical in the previous videos of interference. So when we say geometrical path difference, we just take the difference between the two paths. As I have one path from S1 to P and the second path from S2 to P. So if you look at the diagram, obviously the answer is that S2P path is longer than S1P path. So we can say that path difference can be written as S2P minus S1P. Now, obviously, our next aim is to calculate what is S2P and what is S1P. Now, if we calculate what is S1P and S2P, we have to consider two triangles in this. That is, if we want to calculate S2P, we are considering triangle S2NP, and obviously applying the Pythagoras theorem, we are has this n angle is 90 degree. We can have s2n square plus np square plus s2n square, which is going to be added with np square, and the hypotenuse is nothing but the s2p square. So in this case, we can write the term as we can see that np, that is from here till here, this O2P distance is x and O2N distance is d. So the total distance from N to P can be written as x plus d. So using that, and NP can be written as x plus d the whole square, and S2P is the term which we need to find. Obviously we need to look at the diagram and need to calculate what is S2N. Now if you look at S2N, it is the distance between the slit and the screen, and the distance between the slit and the screen is taken to be d, that is capital D. This is capital D. So once we are calculating S2P the whole square, we are writing it as d square plus x plus d the whole square. So if I want to find S2P, we can take the square root of the term, that is d square plus x plus d the whole square with the power of half, that is square root. Now if I want to take the d square as common, we can take the d square term to be common term. In that case, we are going to get 1 plus x plus d the whole square, the whole divided by d square, as we are taking d square to be common, with the power of half. Now as we can see that this is giving me the d term and the x plus d term. So when we are talking about this equation, that is this bracket 1 plus x plus d the whole square divided by d square with the power of half, in that case we can expand this bracket with the help of binomial expansion. And when we expand, this is the shortcut which we make use of, that is, in binomial expansion we keep the first term as it is, and the power of the bracket or the power of that whole term is written before the second term. That is, as you can see, the power of this is half. So I've written the first term as it is, and the power is written before the second term, that is half is written before the second term. And we are going to obtain many more terms in the further part, but as we are aware that the distance d is very much greater than the x plus d term, so obviously d square is going to be very much greater than x plus d the whole square. So for that case, we can neglect all the higher terms. So for the binomial expansion, we are just skipping the two first terms, that is 1 plus the second term, that is half x plus d the whole square divided by d square. Now if we continue with the further part, we get the S2P equation to be, if I multiply d inside the bracket, we are going to get the first term d as it is, plus, and if we multiply d, this d is going to get cancelled with this d square. We are going to get only one term, that is d in the denominator. So this is the equation of S2P, that is d plus half x plus d the whole square divided by d. Now we have to calculate the second term, that is S1P, to find the path difference. Now if we want to calculate S1P, that this is the S1P distance, this, so we need to consider the smaller triangle, that is S1MP, and in S1MP, M is the 90-degree angle, so it is going to represent a right angle triangle, and in that S1P is the hypotenuse and S1M and MP is the two sides. So S1M, that is from here till here, it is the distance between the slit and the screen, so distance is capital D. And for MP, as we are aware, O to P distance is X, O to M distance is D. So if I want to obtain MP, it will be X minus D. So using the Pythagoras theorem, that is in triangle S1MP, we are making use of Pythagoras theorem, and we can get the value as S2M, that is S1M square plus mp square is equal to s1p the whole square. Now, as we can see in that, s1 to m is the distance between the slit and the screen. So the distance will be taken as d square plus mp is the x minus small d. So x minus d square is equal to s1p the whole square. So s1p value will be equal to d square plus x minus d square. As s1p has a square, so we can write it as square root, so with the power of half. Next is, when you write s1p, in this case I can again expand this equation with the help of binomial expansion and taking the d square to be common or out of the bracket. So I can write this term as d 1 plus x minus d the whole square divided by the d square in the denominator with the power of half. Now we can expand this equation using the binomial expansion, and when we do the binomial expansion we need to keep the first term as it is and we need to multiply the power to the second term. So we are going to get s1p is equal to d with first term as it is, power that is half multiplied to the second term, and we are going to get many more higher terms. But then again, as d is very much greater than x minus d, we can neglect the remaining terms, that is higher power terms. So we are just going to retain the first two terms, that is 1 and the second term. And if I multiply the d inside, I'm going to get a value of s1p is equal to d plus the d ones get multiplied to the second term. This d square with the d will get cancelled, and we are going to get half x minus d the whole square divided by d. So this is the whole term of s1p. So we have calculated s2p, that is equation 1. We have calculated s2p and s1p, that is equation 2. Now to get the path difference, we need to subtract the s2p value minus s1p value. So if we are subtracting this value, we are going to get the path difference, that is delta. Delta will be d plus half x plus d the whole square divided by the d value. This is nothing but your s2p value minus s1p is d minus half, that is minus is going to be written as plus is going to become minus, and x minus d the whole square divided by d. Now in this case, as these d's are going to get cancelled, so we are going to get the remaining two terms, that is this and this. For the two terms which are pending, x plus d square can be expanded as x square plus 2xd plus d square, and this can be expanded as x square minus 2xd plus d square. So in this expansion, the first and the third term is getting cancelled with each other. So we are going to just have the pending terms as a half, and the second term, that is the middle term of the expansion, that is 2xt by capital D will be pending, and from this side we will be having half 2xt by capital D. So if I add these terms together, I'm going to get the value of path difference to be xd by capital D. So this is the path difference which we are getting by subtracting the longer path s2p minus s1p. Now, as the point P is a random point on the screen, as you can see, this point P is a random point. I want to determine whether it is a bright point or a dark point. So we need to write the conditions for it. Like if I want that band to be a bright one, it should satisfy the condition of constructive interference. And if I want to consider point P to be a dark band, it needs to satisfy the destructive interference. So once we get the path reference, so for suppose if I want the point P to be behaving as a bright point, for that case my value of path difference is always equal to n lambda. So if I want to consider point P to be a bright point, the path difference should be particularly follow the condition of n lambda, that is integral multiple of lambda. and we have written the path difference already using the mathematical treatment as xt capital D. So if I equate this path difference, I get xt capital D divided is equal to n lambda. Now if I take the terms together, I can get x is equal to n lambda capital D divided by small d. This is the value of x which we are getting. Now once I get this value of x from this equation, we can write this x value for any of the fringes. Like if I want to write the value of x for the nth fringe, it is going to be xn. If I want to write it for n plus 1 fringe, it is going to be written as n plus 1th fringe. So this is the way we talk about, that is the terms of equation. So in this case, when you're writing the terms over here, in that case we can write the equations as it is. So we are getting this equations as x is equal to L lambda d by 2d. So once I get this value, we can further expand this equation for suppose nth bright fringe, or we are aware it can be written as band, because fringe is nothing but another word for band. So when I write nth bright fringe, because why I'm saying bright, because we have written the condition this for the bright point, a point P behaving as a bright point. So for nth bright fringe, xn will be written as n lambda d by 2d. And suppose if I want to consider the n plus 1th bright fringe, that is the equation is going to get modified as xn plus 1, that is instead of n we need to write n plus 1, and over here we will write it as n plus 1 lambda d by 2d. So this is the two equations which we have written. Xn, that is the distance for the nth bright fringe, and xn plus 1 is the distance for the n plus 1th bright fringe. So if I write these two values, if I want to calculate, as we were calculating the fringe width, in that case fringe width is nothing but the distance between two consecutive bright fringes or two consecutive dark fringes. So if I consider two consecutive bright fringes, this is the nth bright fringe, this is the n plus 1. Like for example, if I say first bright fringe and the second bright fringe, they both are consecutive. So I can take the difference between them and calculate the fringe width. In a similar manner, this is nth bright fringe and this is the n plus 1. So if I take the distance between the two, so we are trying to calculate the fringe width for the bright bands. To calculate that, that is to calculate the fringe width for the bright fringes, we need to calculate the distance between the n and n plus 1. We can get it by subtracting the xn plus 1 distance minus the xn. So in this case, xn plus 1 is nothing but n plus 1 lambda d by 2d minus xn is taken to be n lambda d by 2d. So as you can see, this term is going to get expanded into two terms, that is n lambda d by 2d plus lambda d by 2d minus n lambda d by 2d. These two terms get cancelled and we get the fringe width to be lambda d by 2d. And we can write the fringe width denotation as beta. So fringe width, that is the distance between two consecutive bright band, I'm getting the value as 2 lambda capital D divided by 2d. So when we talk about the fringe width between the two bright bands or two consecutive bright bands, it is written as beta is equal to lambda, that is the wavelength of light, capital D is the distance between the slit and the screen, and small d is the distance between the two slits, that is S1 and S2. So this is what you write about the fringe width of two bright bands. Next is, if we want to calculate again the fringe width for the dark bands, because in interference pattern we obtain bright bands as well as dark bands. So for dark bands, that is for minimum intensity, we can write this equation as, or you can say for point P to behave as dark point, we can say destructive interference has to occur. So for that case, as we are aware, the path difference is written as delta is equal to 2xt by capital D. This is the path difference which we are getting from the previous calculations. And if I want to consider that the point P is a dark point, so we need to consider that the path difference follows the criteria of odd multiple of lambda by 2. So this is the condition for a point to be a dark point. So this is the path difference which we are getting from the mathematical treatment, and this is the path difference which we are aware which should be satisfied for a point to be a dark point. So if I consider point P to be a dark point, we need to just compare both the path difference. We are going to get 2xt by capital D equal to 2n plus 1 lambda by 2. So if I calculate this value, we are going to get x, that is distance, to be equal to 2n plus 1 lambda capital D divided by, that is, this is going to give us a term of 4 small d. So this is the term which we are getting in the calculation of odd multiple of lambda by 2. So if I consider the point P to be a dark point, the path difference should be odd multiple of lambda by 2, and if we equate the terms together, this is the terms which we are getting, and x will be written as the 2n plus 1 lambda d divided by the 4d term. Now again, if you want to calculate the fringe width, that is for the dark bands, or if I say fringe width defined for the dark bands is again calculated as distance between the two consecutive dark bands. Now suppose if I consider nth dark band and n plus 1th dark band, in that case we can write the term as, that is, if I consider nth dark fringe, so for the nth dark fringe the equation is going to look like xn 2n plus 1 lambda d by 4d, and for n plus 1th dark fringe we are going to write the equation as, that is, xn plus 1. Instead of n over here we have to write 2n plus 1 plus 1 lambda capital D by 4d. Obviously, if we want to calculate the fringe width, we need to calculate the distance between the two consecutive dark band. So I've considered two dark fringes, that is nth and n plus 1. So to calculate the distance between two consecutive dark fringes, we need to subtract the term, that is xn plus 1 minus xn. So if we subtract the value, we obviously get the value as lambda capital D by 2d. So once we are calculating the value of distance between the two consecutive dark fringes and expanding the term and calculating the whole value, we are going to again get the value of lambda d by 2d. This is what we get the fringe width as. So we have calculated using a certain criteria the fringe width for two bright bands or two consecutive bright bands, and we have again opted for a mathematical criteria and we have calculated the fringe width for dark bands. So as we can see that fringe width for dark band and fringe width for bright band, they are both equal. That means all the fringes in interference pattern are equally spaced. When we say that the fringe width either for dark band is equal to fringe width for bright band, this means that in the interference pattern obtained due to the interference phenomena, in that case all the fringes are equally spaced and they are of equal width. Now, so as we can see that when you talk about the beta value, beta is nothing but indicating the fringe width. So as we can say that the beta indicates nothing but the fringe width, and fringe width value either for two consecutive bright band or two consecutive dark band is remaining the same. So we can write that for beta, beta has a value of either for bright band or dark band, it has the same value, that is lambda d by 2d. So if we look at the dependency, that is fringe width is dependent on three terms. That is beta is directly proportional to the wavelength of source of light. Secondly, beta is directly proportional to the distance between the slit and the screen, that is capital D. Thirdly, beta depends on the distance between the two coherent sources. So we can conclude from here that whenever we are doing the calculation of the fringe width, that is beta, in the interference pattern, fringe width is nothing but the distance between either two consecutive bright bands or two consecutive dark bands in the interference pattern. And once we do the calculation, we get the same values of beta. Secondly, beta has a dependency on three terms, that is lambda, capital D, and small d. When we say lambda, lambda is indicating the wavelength of the source of light. So beta has a direct dependency with it, that if wavelength increases, the fringe width is going to increase. Secondly, when we talk about capital D is the distance between the slit and the screen. So the slit and the screen distance is increased. In that case, the fringe width also going to increase. But when we look at the dependency with the relation of your small d, that is the distance in two coherent sources, they are inversely proportional to each other. So if the distance between the two coherent sources is very small, the fringe width is going to be higher. So these are the criteria which are going to be kept in mind. That is, we need to control the value of lambda, capital D, and small d to get a certain value of fringe width. So this indicates that when we are doing the calculation of fringe width, or to obtain the fringe width, we have to look at the three values: wavelength, secondly, distance between the slit and the screen, thirdly, distance between the two slits, which are behaving as coherent sources. So this is what we talk about the Young's double slit experiment and the analytical treatment which is obtained, or analytical mathematical equations which we are obtaining with the help of Young's double slit experiment, which is nothing but one of the method of interference by division of wavefront. So this is how the Young's double slit experiment looks like. You have S1 and S2, and the wavefronts are getting divided because of the presence of S1 and S2. And this at the central point, we are always going to get the central bright band, because when we look at the pattern, they're getting a bright band over here. But for any other distances, we can obtain either a bright band or a dark band. This is nothing but the interference pattern obtained due to the method of Young's double slit experiment, in which we talk about the division of wavefront. The second method in Young's double slit experiment, after that, we had Fresnel biprism. Using again the biprism, that is, biprism is going to be made up of two thin prisms, and as you can see, this is indicating the biprism, that is one biprism attached to the second, and the angle between these two refracting surface is around 179 degree, and this angle is of around 30 minutes. So this is smaller angle. So this whole apparatus or this whole instrument is nothing but the biprism. So using the biprism, we are trying to divide the wavefront. So the wavefront is coming originally from the common source, but using the two parts of the prism, or you can say the two prisms joined together, that is a biprism. Using this biprism, we are trying to divide the wavefront, and by dividing the wavefront, we are going to obtain two light sources, that is S1 and S2. So actually I have only one original source. But as the light waves are going in a certain direction and falling on one surface of the prism, and this light waves moving in this direction and falling on the second surface, so as they proceed further after the prism, when we look at this particular part and we retrace it backward, we see that it is coming from some other point, because we are aware of the concept that light always travels from a straight path. So light is actually coming from the source S, but as they are getting refracted because of the presence of prism, they are moving in this direction. Now if I observe it from this particular position, I will retrace it backward and it appears to come from this particular position S2. And if I retrace this path again backward, it will appear to come from S1. So depending upon the way I'm observing the light waves from the screen side, it will appear that the light waves are coming from the 2 points, that is S1 and S2. But actually the light waves are originally coming from only one single source, that is S, that is the original source. But because of the two refracting sides of the prism and refraction occurring for the light waves originating from S, when we retrace the original path of the wave, we come to see the two virtual sources, that is S1 and S2. So in the Fresnel biprism experiment, S is the original source, and when we talk about S1 and S2, they are behaving as virtual sources because they are actually not present over there. But when we look at from the point of view, that is from the screen side, we get to see that the light waves are appearing to come from S1 and S2. So S1 and S2 are going to behave as coherent sources, as the light waves are nothing but originally coming from S only. And when you look at this instrument, that is which is looking like a prism, it is a biprism, that is two prisms combined together, and the angle between the two refracting surface is 179 degree, and the angle between this is around 30 minutes, which is very small. And when we consider the wavefront coming from S gets divided into two parts, half going over there and the second other half on this side, these two wavefronts overlap with each other, giving me interference pattern on the screen. So, using Fresnel biprism, we can again obtain interference, but this is nothing but using the method of division of wavefront. So, there are many more methods of obtaining interference with the help of division of wavefront. The first one I said, Young's double slit experiment. We can make use of biprisms, that is by Fresnel biprisms. We can make use of mirrors for division of wavefronts. So there are many methods of obtaining the interference with the help of division of wavefront. So in this video, we have talked about the concept of obtaining interference with the help of division of wavefront, which is nothing but division of wavefront from one common source to two or three wavefronts, and ultimately obtaining bright and dark alternate bands of fringes on the screen, which is nothing but the interference pattern. So this is what we talk about, the interference by division of wavefront. That's all for this video. Thank you so much.